Luke,
Lockie,
man,
locked in.
we've been teeing this up for a long time. You came on as one of the Cabana Boys. Hold on. Where the fuck did Cabana Boys come from?
I think it was an imagination around the pool. We were just all lounging out, and it just seemed fitting at the time. I actually had a couple female friends kind of token our crew as that. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It came from an external source.
Perfect. We'll claimed it. It's now our group chat name,
Certified.
and there's a beautiful DT photo to go along with it. But this is your first. You've spoken on panels. You've been on the Cabana Boy podcast, aka just the man that came with us for. And now your first solo. We're going to get to unpack Luke Johnstone.
That's a scary thought.
Are you excited?
Rock and roll, man.
That shirt is also a banger.
Yeah.
Do it for tomorrow.
Seen some miles.
We do quite regularly dress the same. Remember the other day where we were literally all wearing the same thing? Me, you, and Liam.
Cabana Boys.
Everyone's like, how'd you do it? Just luck.
Yeah.
But it's like text message rehearsals happen. Mate, I'm stoked to have you on. You're a wealth of knowledge. We connected, August last year? No.
August, yeah.
I can't even
First
count
week
back.
August,
Let's say
I remember.
8 months ago.
Yeah.
And you've since come on into the academy, had some incredible results, which is awesome, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later. This is also going to be a sales pitch for everyone listening around why you should join the academy.
Absolutely.
No, not really, but you'll want to join. But one of the cool things, and why I'm super grateful, I learn a lot from you. I know Liam learns a lot from you, and you're like this hidden gem in the academy, but just, you just go about your business. But the level of success you've had in so many different areas of your life, and the way that you can teach people about those things, but you don't force it down people's throat, which I think is an incredible thing. Is like, for me, I hope a lot of the guys in the academy listen to this and go, fuck, we need to drop Lukey a line. So let's go back to the beginning. You're born in Canada?
Yeah. Born and raised Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is the east coast of Canada. Kind of just north of New York and Boston, if you want to think of it that way, or right across the pond from London, England. So great place to be from. It's kind of a small city, about 500,000 people.
Yep.
Really good values, humble values, beach living, decent weather.
So it's a beach town.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, it's all coast, and it's definitely a laid back vibe over there.
Yep.
But yeah, just really humble roots. Had the, fortunate, great family. Like, I can't complain about anything in my background. I had every opportunity given to me, and then it's about what you do with those opportunities. Believe me, I've had lots of friends that had life dished up on a silver platter and
didn't do anything with it.
Can't really speak much about what they're up to these days.
What's your thoughts? Because I know people cop criticism when they are given things from their parents, like opportunities, for example, or networks or whatever. It's like, oh, life's easy for you, you got given it, but you do have to run with it, because there's a lot of people who get it and don't make anything of it. What's your sort of thoughts around that? Absolutely.
I mean, it's hard no matter what. I mean, certainly if you're given opportunities and you're smart enough to realize it, you got to work hard to make something of it. In today's world, it's ultra competitive, and if you're not creating value for those around you, particularly in the business arena, you're just going to be pushed to the side. So as much as I had the opportunity to get a good education while I studied hard and learned a lot, as much as I had an opportunity to play every sport, I had to bust my ass off at every turn of the way and get the most from those coaches and transfer those skills into future endeavors. So, yeah, I mean, it's those who are fortunate, but then sometimes you're handicapped by being too fortunate, or kind of like the athlete that's too good at a sport, they don't work out as hard, and then someone who's maybe a few steps behind them when they're 15, 16 is light years ahead of them when they're 21, because they have those habits and routines to stick to in the discipline, right? So, I mean, look at Jay-Z. He's a project kid from Brooklyn. Now he's a multi-billionaire. So
he's a weapon.
It's not necessarily a prerequisite to have it, but you certainly have a leg up. You're starting at an advantage, and it's just about if you take advantage of it.
Yep. And I guess one of the ways to fast track your own success is get around people who do have those successes, because you can get the leg up from learning from them rather than having to go through textbooks or experiences. It's like the stuff I've learned from you about business and networking and other ways to generate revenue. I'm like, wow. I didn't know that 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And now I know. It's like fast-tracked stuff that I may never have learned about, or may have learned about in 10 years' time.
Yeah, you can definitely accelerate things, and you do that through hard work and experience. And
Yeah.
I don't know any other remedy than that.
So going back, obviously you grew up. What was your sport of choice back in the day?
Well, being a Canadian, I mean, I was on skates since I could walk,
Yep.
and came from a big hockey family. My dad was a hockey player. My brother played professional. Shout out Alex.
Yeah,
another academy
Alex
member.
is in the academy now as well.
Yeah. So I mean, he kind of followed in his footsteps. He created a bit of a way for me to follow in, and mainly was hockey in the early going, and then played a bit of everything: basketball, baseball, swimming. But then in my later years, I gravitated to football, and kind of hit a fork in the road where I had to decide between going the hockey route or the college football route, and in the end, I decided to go football.
What made you decide football?
Well, I like the fact that it was a school path.
Yes.
I mean, the hockey route, I was drafted to a rural Quebec team. Would have been probably the only English speaking guy in the whole area. It's tough. You got to fight. You fight frequently, and
Yep.
the thought of that versus full scholarship to school and chasing girls and getting an education seemed pretty good to me. So and also too, I was better at football. I was just a better football player all around, and got to play at a really high
What position were you?
So I played defensive back. I was a bit of a different build back then. I was a bit skinnier. But yeah, defensive back. So basically you guard the receivers and kind of the running back and try to make the quarterback's life a nightmare. So
Perfect.
yeah, that's what I tried to do.
Are you pumped for the Super Bowl on Monday?
Yeah. I'm very excited. It's two good teams going at it. Unfortunately, lost a bet to my friend Chris, so I owe him $1,000. But anyways, that's all good. It's all part of the game. But no, I mean, it's always entertaining, and I think Rihanna's doing the halftime show, so that should be exciting.
Yeah, someone was saying that. Maybe that was you, but she hasn't released an album for ages.
Yeah.
And she's just banging out the halftime show.
Yeah, she just built a multi-billion-dollar brand with Fendi, and she's been doing that.
That's
it's pretty cool.
Yeah, priorities, right?
Yeah.
That's fucking unreal. So what was college life like for you?
Oh man, college. I had a bit of a different college experience because there was some adversity thrown my way later in my years. But essentially, early on, I was just a meathead football player. More of an athlete student as opposed to a student athlete. But we were on a really disciplined regimen. Between strength coaches, sprint coaches, rehab, physiotherapists, yoga. And then
even yoga back then.
Yeah, we had yoga.
Wow.
Yeah, and
just big meatheads doing yoga.
Yeah, and actually had phenomenal results. We had like a 30% decrease in major injuries and like a 10% increase in speed. So flexibility played a big role in that.
That's what I love about college sport is how professional it is. Like they track everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important part for people to take away is if you want to improve something, you got to track it. If you aren't tracking it, you're just guessing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's an aspect of the man that can that I love because we have apps and coaches to follow us every step of the way. And it was much the same there. So yeah, between that plus some sort of a social life and then in the afterthought of doing studies.
Yep.
So the first couple of years, I was really dialed into the football scene. I lived with 5 other football players. It was a complete animal house. We got up to all the silly stuff that you'd think we would. But at the same time, when a lot of students were out, drinking late nights and stuff, we actually had to be pretty dialed in. You got 5 a.m. sprints the next day. Plus, a lot of the football players are bouncers. So if they see you coming in, they're like, "What are you doing, man?"
We got a game to win.
Yeah, or even just off season. You got training session tomorrow. Why are you doing this? So it was pretty regimented in contrast to your regular students on campus.
And because of the population, was it just incredibly competitive? Like every year, there's obviously a new influx of students, obviously, but then also players that are trying to get you a spot.
Yeah, it's cutthroat. I mean, for my position, there's 5 spots. Really, only 3. So you got to be the best at your game. And every year, you're right. There's new recruits coming in, and they're trying to make a name for themselves. And the first couple of years are very much developmental, especially, some guys come out of high school and go right to college like myself. But a lot of guys will actually go to like other leagues and like men's leagues and stuff like that, and then kind of come in at like 21. Well, I graduated when I was 21, so my senior year, I was like the same age as most rookies. Wow. So developmentally, that was a challenge because I came in my first year. I remember I went against a guy and I looked at him. He was like, "This is a grown man. Like, what am I doing? Like,
I don't even have a ball in my head.
I can't even grow a beard, So yeah, it was definitely men versus boys in the early going. But through hard work and training and great coaching and strength coaches and everything, we built the physique up, and then the last couple of years you kind of felt like you're throwing people around, so it was a lot of fun.
It's good fun.
Yeah.
And along the way, you had a head knock or head injury.
Yeah. So I had a few actually. I had my third and fourth year were ended through concussions. And what's interesting with my career is in the early going, concussions weren't really acknowledged. Coaches would say, "Oh, you got your bell rung, kid. Shake it off."
Your bell rung.
Yeah, you got to shake it off. Get back out there. And that was kind of the early days. And then people became more aware of the severity and seriousness of it all. And then kind of through my transition is when people started to have concussion protocols and different procedures in place to deal with it. And I kind of fell into that category where I think it was one concussion, you got to wait a week or a month, 2 concussions, minimum 3 months, and then 3 concussions within 18 months, you're done. So I went through that whole process, and, I was sitting in exams with sunglasses on and barely knowing what to write on an exam and stuff like that. So I definitely went through a lot of the post-concussion syndrome. But my final year, in my senior year, I had a major impact, taken off the field in an ambulance, the whole deal. And what was different with this one is that my symptoms weren't subsiding. In fact, they were getting worse until one morning I woke up blind. I couldn't see. And it was really, really scary. And, luckily we had trainers and staff attend to me, and I got put right back in the hospital right away and spent the better part of 9 months going through various tests. And, I did 2 months of sensory deprivation. So basically they strip away all stimuli. That's including human interaction, music, television, you name it. So basically just sat in the dark for 2 months.
What was that like?
It was tough. Keith Urban, good Aussie, had his album. I was allowed to listen to it for 10 minutes a day, and that was like my big moment.
Did you play the song Stupid Boy? Or?
Yeah. I did. But in the end, it was interesting. They were kind of treating the wrong issue. They thought I had, severe brain trauma and post-concussion syndrome. But in the end, what it was is I had an overbuild of cerebral spinal fluid, which is essentially fluid that's generated in your brain and it runs up and down your spinal column.
Yep. And
long story short, my brain was overproducing it, which was causing pressure, which was then causing the symptoms.
So you're like a genius, is that?
Yeah. Basically limitless Bradley Cooper. That's kind of what I'm going with. 100%. But no, in the end, I got treated. I did a series of spinal taps, which was not pleasant.
So is a spinal tap like draining fluid? Or?
Correct, yeah. So essentially it's a giant needle.
Did it hurt?
Yeah, it did. The first couple, I didn't look. Then I made the mistake of looking, and it looked like the nurse was assembling like a sniper rifle. Like they came in like a case and the full deal. So it was pretty traumatizing to know I had to go through a bunch of those. But the good thing is, I was learning how to read again. Like I couldn't put sentences together. I couldn't communicate. Like it was really
How
rough.
did that impact your college time? Because what were you studying as well?
So I took business with a major in finance and leadership. Yep. And I had to put my studies on hold. So I actually didn't graduate with my cohort. Couldn't attend graduation. I was in the hospital. Couldn't have grabbed the X-ring ceremony, which is kind of a big deal.
Yep.
Had to sit out on all that
ring,
stuff.
Yeah,
bling bling. But it was kind of brutal because I just everyone in university just saw me as one thing, and then I just left in the hospital and just couldn't talk to anyone. So I was off the map for a better part of a year.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Like when you think back to that time in your life, like it's pretty surreal that something like that could happen. And now you wouldn't even know. Have there been any like long-term symptoms or anything as a result of the let's say just head injury?
Trauma? Yeah. So I have a bit of a shake. You may have noticed that sometimes. So sometimes people think I'm nervous, but I'm not. It's
I just think you're happy to see me.
I'm just excited around you.
Yeah.
Mainly Liam too. But no, I mean, really just a slight tremor. And then interesting enough, I don't know if this is just getting old or what, but I do get probably 1 or 2 migraines a year, typically when the seasons change, which is weird, like fall and spring.
It's your body's intuition.
Don't know. Yeah, it's the moon, man.
It's like, what's Mingo where she's feeling her boobs? She's like, there's a 10% chance of rain. It's like, no shit.
Yeah, there always is. But so that was a really interesting experience to go through, and at the end of the day, that was definitely the most adversity I'd faced.
Well, what was it like for you mentally though? Like obviously going from college football and succeeding, doing well in your studies, to then having it all taken away from you.
Yeah.
What was it like mentally for you?
Yeah, that was part of the challenge. Was in the hospital, but that was just more like survival mode. It's just like, got to get through the day, got to get better, got to do the rehab, like, just do everything they tell you to do. That was very much a reactionary state. But when I came out, being sort of a captain of the football team, top of the business school, all these good things that are going on, very social, and then having that stripped away and having to spend that time in the hospital and being off the map and then kind of coming back to it, that was really rough because I kind of felt for the first time I wasn't an athlete anymore. I was taking long distance studies. I wasn't on campus. I wasn't around all my friends. So that was a big challenge. And honestly, the bigger challenge was actually getting out of the hospital and then getting back to me. And that's ultimately why I moved to Australia. I did, I'm pretty extreme sometimes. So I decided I'm going to go to the other side of the world. If I don't get out of this funk, it's up to me. I can either sit in the hostel and cry myself to sleep every night, or I can train hard every day, eat healthy, live a healthy lifestyle, and get out there and be social. Because I came here with no friends.
I think the reboot's so important because it's same when I moved to France. I needed to get away and sort of rebuild. The same when I moved from Toowoomba to Brisbane, even though it's only 2 hours, I still started from scratch, and you can really rebuild who you are and how people see you.
Yep.
Whereas if you just sort of try to make subtle changes, sometimes it can be hard because your peer group might be like, no, you don't do that. Every Friday night we go sing tins. And you're like, well, I don't want to sing tins on a Friday night, but come on, Lukey.
Yeah.
We sing tins. Let's do it.
That's it.
And eventually you do give in, or most people do give in. So that complete reset's unreal.
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, Halifax was great. I'm so fortunate. I got friends that we were pushed in baby strollers together. So
That's
shout
awesome.
out Halifax boys, but
and baby strollers.
Yeah,
hashtag sponsored.
But yeah, I mean, it was just an environment. I kind of went out to Alberta. I was hanging at my dad's place for a little bit, and I just was not myself. Everyone around me was just like, "What? Is Luke going to be back to normal?" And probably went through a mild depression. Really, I mean, having gone through all that. I mean, at the time, I didn't know. I just thought this was the new normal. But it was strange. Like, had I been sitting here, I'd be like, "Hi, how's it going?" And then, like, stare at the ground. And in my head, I'd be like, "Talk to him. Like, what are you doing?" And
it's interesting you say that because I feel now a lot of people say they're depressed or they're anxious, but they don't really understand what depression is or what anxiety is. Often it can be overwhelm or just sadness.
Yeah.
And I think then when you start going, no, I'm depressed, what you focus on grows. And once again, depression's a real thing, anxiety is a real thing, but as well, I know from my experience with it, when I started shifting focus, I had a lot more control over it. Not saying it disappeared, but I had more control over how I felt and what I focused on.
For sure. And also too, like what work are you putting in? I know me when I drink, I'll have higher levels of anxiety. I don't sleep well. I probably don't eat as well. So it's like, why am I nervous before this meeting? That's routine. It's like, well, you're out till 4 a.m. over the weekend partying like an idiot, and you're not prepared. So you should be nervous.
Your fault, motherfucker.
Yeah.
You put yourself in the position.
Yeah.
People don't like to take responsibility. How did you, were you always interested in business and finance, or what was that just? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
where did that interest come from?
I would probably credit my Uncle Wayne.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out Uncle Wayne. I don't think you have an iPhone, but if you know how to use it. No, my Uncle Wayne was a phenomenal businessman, and also my grandpa. He had an amazing story. Basically went from being a farmer who lost it all because of health reasons, had to restart his life with a young family, and started off as a gas attendant, pumping gas back in the 50s. And fast forward, owned pretty much all the gas stations in an oil company they sold to Texaco. So he did that in like 10 years with my grandma's help on the books and stuff. So in my family, there's always been a bit of entrepreneurial spirit, and my Uncle Wayne really embodied that as well. And just seeing the lifestyle and initiatives that they taken on through their life, it was amazing to see. So most of my family is actually medical. So I had a lot of dinner table talk about crazy stuff, and I kind of realized that that's probably not the path for me, and connecting with people and doing deals and stuff is more in line.
Doing deals, crushing deals.
Yeah.
How important or how influential do you think it was having access to obviously your grandfather and your Uncle Wayne and watching them have professional or business success like that? Because I think it's just, once again, highlighting the importance of surrounding yourself with people who have what you want because of those discussions that you get to be part of. Like, how influential was that for you?
It's interesting. This might come off wrong, so we'll see how it goes. But growing up, I was really fortunate to have, close family members, close family friends, my immediate friend circle, everyone kind of had a certain pedigree. And then university, that sort of carried on. So it wasn't until like I was in my early 20s and kind of got out of that bubble that I realized like, oh, not everyone does this stuff,
Yeah, it's so
like,
normal.
Yeah, like I was like, I thought this stuff was standard, but I guess it's not. I guess it's exceptional. So not to sound too pompous or anything, but like it's just that's how we did things. Like,
I love hearing that though, because I was the complete opposite. I didn't have access to any of that, so I thought it was just like rich people rip people off, and how I lived was my own little bubble.
Yeah.
And I realized that bubble wasn't going to help me get where I wanted to, so I had to become someone that was accepted in a different bubble, so to speak.
And then you learn from them.
Yeah, and you're just like, wow, everyone can learn this stuff. Everyone can have this stuff. It's just, are you prepared to become the person you need to be invited into those circles and have those people, that value exchange with people? Absolutely.
No, and that's just, and now more than ever, I mean, democratization of information's everywhere. And if you really want to search for it and apply that, pick up a Warren Buffett book, read it.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah, like the first real, true wealthy person that I knew was Dan, who's your business partner, right?
Shout out DJ.
Shout out DJ.
Lots of shout outs going down. But the big man.
Yeah, he was, so generous with his time and stuff, but he knows exactly what I was like, years ago. And I was a fucking crumb.
Yeah, but he probably knew what was in you.
Yeah, but if he knew, if he, if I was the person I needed to be to earn that kind of money, he probably would have asked me to go into business with him, but I was not, and he could see that.
Yeah.
So while I got to hang around with him and have great experiences and create some great memories with him, we never went into business. So I guess why I share that is you need to become someone that the people you aspire to be like, or the people who have the life that you want to live, want to include you in things.
Yeah.
And that's not to say you're shit. It's not about that, but it's like people's time's valuable and it's a value exchange. So once again, not to come off as rude or anything, but I have priorities around where my time needs to go. Not because it's better or worse. I just have goals that I want to achieve and certain environments that I want to be around. Some people don't provide that for me.
Yep.
So I'm not going to spend time with them.
Yep.
Opposed to some people who do. It's why we get on so well. Liam gets on, our group gets on so well.
Yep.
Because we have very similar values and drive and ambition.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, sometimes it's simply just outgrow your environment.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, you gotta provide value to those around you. And I don't mean in a business sense, but just being a good friend, being a good listener, being honest. All those things. It goes to something else we'll probably talk about with happiness. But strength of relationships is key. And relationships. I mean, ultimately, as things become more automated through AI and everything, it's going to come down to human relationships and how you manage them.
Oh yeah, 100%. So getting into the business world. I'm so excited to talk about your business journey. So,
oh goodness,
oh man, it's been a wild ride. But so obviously now, currently, you're CFO of Austral Resources.
Yep.
Which is a publicly listed company.
Yep.
I was going to do a joke about it, but I don't even want to do a joke about like buy low, sell high.
Full disclaimer.
Yeah, full disclaimer. None of that is financial advice. I was just trying to be funny, and it's not funny.
AR1 load up.
yeah. Full disclaimer, that was a joke. In case someone's there, we're going to burn Luke.
Yeah.
Don't just take a snippet from this podcast. Listen to the whole thing.
Yeah.
No, so your business career, how'd that start out?
Yeah. So, I mean, I started out in California.
Cali.
Yeah. Basically, it was funny how it started. I was just training for football, and I played hockey, like intramural hockey on like a men's team, and tying the skates in the dressing room. My buddy said, "Hey man, like, what are you doing this summer?" I was like, "I'll probably just work out and hang out on the beach." And he said, "What are your thoughts on going to California? You can make like 50 grand in a couple months." I was like, "Sounds pretty cool. Like, what do we got to do?" He's like, "I don't know. I'm just getting the details, but we just got to start a sales office and just get people to go to Cali. Everything's paid for, and you just got to work doing sales." And I was like, "Well, that sounds all right." So basically myself and a few others, we recruited a bunch of Canadian university students, and that was really the tagline. It was like, you want to live in California, all expenses paid, and you just got to work 5 days a week and, hammer doors and get sales done. And yeah, basically we went out with General Electric and did, like, at the time it was home automation. And that was, and also too, part of my belief is, I think it was Peter Drucker. He's like the father of business. And he just said, in order for business to occur, someone has to sell something to someone.
Yes.
So if you think of the first step of business, you should probably have some form of sales or advanced communication.
And people don't like sales. People are really, it's like you're a dirty salesman. It's like, well, how's the economy work?
Exactly. Every transaction is some form of a sale behind it. So I believe that it was really important. And then, this offered managing people as well and building teams. So those are things that I love to do. And yeah, basically we went to California. We absolutely killed it. I kind of went a different route. I sold, rather than selling like door-to-door individual contracts, I just went to the golf club and hung out with the developers.
Where'd that idea come from, though? Because a lot of people would just go, I'm just going to, like me personally, I would have been like, I'm just going to bang on more doors, which is what I did when I was doing door-to-door rather than going, let's go to businesses, which is what we're now doing with the Man That Can project, right?
Yeah, and that's just it, right? So, I just was like, there's got to be a better way than this. And where do developers want to hang out? Well, probably on a boat or on a golf course, right? So I went to both those areas. I bought a boat and took people out and stuff. And, rather than selling one contract, you sell 100. So the company wasn't really set up for that sales model. Yep. We did pretty well and finished first in the country and had a great time. So the
first in the whole of United States.
Yeah. For that division. Yeah. We killed it.
You're a savage.
Yeah.
Some would say you're like David Goggins.
No.
What a savage.
David, if you're listening, please don't attack me.
Well, I'm seeing Goggins on Monday.
Oh yeah. I might go to that too.
Mate, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for a run Monday morning and hopefully run into him.
He'll be on mile 40. And
I'll be like, mile 50.
Yeah, no big deal.
Stay hard, motherfucker.
Yeah, but yeah, so basically that was kind of my first foray into the real business world. So I kind of checked that box. And
what did you learn from that? Like, how old were you at this age?
I was like 21 or 22.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So you're still young. And a lot of people would I would assume that you'd need to be 30 plus and have a network and experience to do that, but you just thought smarter.
No, at the end of the day, I was tying my skates in a hockey dressing room. That's how that all came to be. And then from there, we took it, and ran with it. I had no aspirations of finishing first or all that. So that just happened as a byproduct of the work and the unique, eclectic group of individuals we had. We were so different than the rest of the groups. A lot of them were like uptight Mormons.
Yeah.
And, like we're Canadians drinking and doing all sorts of stuff. So, yeah.
Had a good
We got many warnings, but being number one is kind of hard to kick us out. So.
Yeah, for sure.
And we knew it.
Yeah.
So, that was kind of the first foray. And then I kind of, had some of that head stuff going on and moved down to Australia. And originally the plan was just to live a healthy lifestyle and get better, and ended up starting like a training business and had a little spot down in Melbourne, down in St. Kilda, and just a boutique, nothing big. And we ran boot camps and all that stuff. And 2 years had passed and the government was knocking on my door being like, hey, what are you doing with your visa? You got to get serious here. And I just said, well, I set out to come to Australia with a goal, and that was to get healthy and get my confidence back. And I achieved that. And it was time to get back, and that's when I came back to Canada.
How important was it getting your health in order to improve your confidence? Because there's a lot of people who are listening who lack confidence.
Oh, it flows off of your, strong mind, fit body, and that will flow through to your mindset. There's no doubt about it. When you're putting in the work every day like we do, there's no denying the benefits that come through to your personal life. And, shirts start feeling a little better on your body, and you start looking in the mirror a little more saying, okay, I'm putting in the work. It's good. So I strongly believe, and especially for me too, and probably it's the same, is you grow up your whole life and you got 1 or 2 or maybe 3 hours of physical activity, and you're getting that exertion out every day. And then you reach 25 and that just stops. What do you think that does to your wiring? And then you play video games instead, or drink, or, how are you substituting that? You need to get that exertion. And Rogan says it best, he puts himself through hell and then everything's easy. Bradley, shut up, Brad. Coach Brad. Put me through hell this morning, but the rest of the day just flows after. Right? Yep. So I'm a firm believer that, strong mind and body will flow through to confidence, and you'll just see a chain reaction.
Yep. I to be honest, I can look at someone and I can almost guess with how they deal with adversity and how they deal with stress and confrontation based on how they look. And I'm a big believer, if you look sloppy, chances are other areas of your life are going to be a bit sloppy. And it's not about, having a washboard abs and all that. No. It's just like, do you put in the work to take care of yourself, showing self-respect so that you can then deliver in other areas of your life?
No question. And also too, how you perform in peak moments, when I'm in intense negotiations and you've been in the room, you might be hungry, you might be tired, you might be dehydrated, whatever the case may be. But if you're physically fitter, you're going to make better decisions. And you can just grind people down. And I'll do that all day.
Survival of the fittest. That's how it's always been.
Crank up the heat.
Yeah.
So that
sauna on, please.
It's like Wolf of Wall Street when the auditors, they put the cold on. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I was in Australia. Oil was on a tear in Canada. Like Alberta, Canada's a massive oil exporter. It's a huge oil producing district. I think it'd be 4th biggest in the world. A lot of people don't know that, but the heart of Canada's economy is out of Alberta, and it was really hot at the time. And my brother was over there; he was rocking and rolling in the business world. And a lot of my friends had gone out of business school, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm like director of something." I'm like, "Man, you're 24. Like, how are you running like 300 people and like the $400 million budget and stuff like that?" So, but that was the opportunity.
But it's funny. Sorry, just to
that's right.
cut in. But like that's what I remember when Liam and I first met you, and I was like, "You got to like Liam for me like." One of my best mates and brother-in-law, but one thing that I take away from how he does things is he networks so well. Out of everyone in the group,
he's sneaky.
Yeah, he's awesome. Like I when we created it, I wanted it so everyone, not just me, obviously selfishly, I want to learn from everyone, but people who maybe wouldn't get the opportunity to talk to people that have what they want now have that. And a lot of people take that for granted, and even some that are in the academy and have access, and they ask me, I'm like, I'm not the expert at that, bro. Go talk to such and such, and they still don't do it.
Yeah.
And then I'll see Liam's like, yeah, I'm going for coffee with Luke or with Marcus or with, and I'm like, you're a fucking legend because you're literally doing what I want people to be doing.
Yeah.
It's like building good friendships, learning, bettering their life as a result of that. And I think, so tangent. Where I went with that, I was like, you're going to meet Luke. He's like young as all buggery, but this dude's got his shit sorted out. He's like, where I want to be, obviously in a different field, but from a success standpoint, but also as a CFO, the way you conduct yourself, I laugh about it all the time. I'm like, it's time to come to the gym in the middle of the day. Most people in your role or a CEO role or a corporate role, they're like, nah, my day is 7 till fucking 6, then I'm going home cranky. It's like you still make time for other things.
Yeah.
Which is, to me, blowing my understanding of what it meant to be in the corporate world.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be I still don't want to be in the corporate world purely because of how miserable I see most people in that space.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, not at all. I mean, that goes back to just prioritizing. At the end of the day, in August when I came and sat with you, I said, you're like, well, this is pretty full on, man. Like, do you think you have time? I was like, this will happen. This is happening.
I love you.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just prioritizing time management, time blocking, all that good stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, you can get a lot done if you do critical tasks.
What made you join as well? I think that's important because this might help people that are sitting on the fence.
Yeah. So
how'd you even find out?
Yeah. So another shout out, Tay. Thank you.
If we had $1 for every shout out, you and I'd be going to bloody SK Oyster.
My actually ex-girlfriend, she put you forward a couple times. She knew you and your content, and about 6 months prior to us breaking up, she sent me the link and was like, listen, you should probably do this. And I probably should have listened because we probably would have blown up my relationship. But yeah, no, basically she put it forward. I checked out like the podcast and stuff, and I just wasn't in the mind frame at the time. With these types of transformations and journeys, you really you can have external forces as much, but it's got to come from within.
For sure.
Right. So I just was not there. I wasn't in the right mind frame. And quite frankly, I thought I was doing things right, to be honest. I was kind of blind to it. We had quite a bit of success last year and kind of went to the head and was living a pretty lavish lifestyle.
Yep.
And wasn't focused on a lot of things, relationship being one of them and health being another one. So basically July, August, that all blew up. And I just had a moment, looked in the mirror and I was like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
And I don't like this guy,
Yeah.
So, when you lose loved ones close to you and that hurts, and you just got to look inwards and say, what am I doing? That's not working here. And the fortunate thing was I had a baseline of a lifestyle and discipline and know the work that it goes in. So for me, it was finding the structure and environment that provides that. And, I dove into the man that can, and I reached out to you right away. And I think we met maybe 1 or 2 days later, and I think I was training twice a day right after that.
After that. Yeah, that's right. 'Cause you're like, this is a lot of training. I'm like, no, it's not. It's supposed to be an hour, and you're like, oh, it says body weight session. I'm like, oh no, that's a choice. Yeah, we've updated our system since then. Yeah.
So that was it. I just kind of got fed up with the person I was, and knew I could be better. And at the end of the day, I want to have strong relationships with loved ones, whether that be family, friends, or significant other. And, my family and friends were good, but I blew up my significant other, and that's something I had to sit there with regret. But at the end of the day, it forced me to get better, and fortunately I did. So it was a big fork in the road, and I'm very thankful to the Academy for providing me that framework.
And you're like 18 kilos down, or we didn't actually weigh you, but you sent through your photos this morning.
Yeah.
Wow. Rig City.
Yeah, it's good. I'm actually launching an OnlyFans. No.
Yeah.
No.
Let's put that there. Let's,
link in the bio.
Yeah, and I'm taking 10%.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But no, it's been great. I mean, it's just a process, and you got to put in the work, and it's something I was going to talk about later, but I'll talk about it now. I mean, at the end of the day, you gotta love the journey and the process. You can't just sit there. In August, I wasn't like, I want to lose 20 kilos and I want it to happen now. It was like this mentality of, I love putting in the work. I love going and like Goggins says, embracing the suck.
Well, I think, a lot of people get disheartened because after like 3 weeks, the scales mightn't have moved. And obviously, once again, you need to track those things because you're going to build muscle and drop fat, but your weight may stay the same. People get disheartened, but it's like, you may want to feel lighter. You're dropping belt sizes or whatever, but this is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like the reason why you're doing this, there's vanity reasons.
Sure.
We all want to look good. I fucking love looking good. But I also do it because it helps with my mental health. It helps me build discipline. It helps me maintain a certain level of resilience. If I know I'm getting soft with things, like I fucking jump in an ice bath, in a sauna, I find a way to belt myself to a point where it's like, this is reality. It's tough. Get on with it. But the more successful I've become in my own career, it's definitely easy to get comfortable. And when I go back home and I'm like, you talk about this bubble. We live in a bubble in Newstead and Kangaroo Point. And when I'm driving home or out west, I'm like, whoa, I forget that the world is actually bigger than the bubble that I'm in, and it sucks in some places for some people.
Yeah.
And it's good to get back to that to remind you of how lucky or fortunate we are with certain things.
No question. No question. I mean, but what's interesting is, you take it to the extreme and you go to third world countries like, whether in Thailand or, I've really noticed it when I was in Costa Rica. These people don't have much, and they live in little shacks, and they might have like a little well for water, and they might have a cell phone, they might not, but they watch the sun go up and come down every day. They got a big smile on their face. They're like, got fish in a bucket. Like, they're doing whatever.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's just values, and I think it's, I'm a believer, I heard this thing once, and it kind of comes under scrutiny, but I do believe in it, is, happiness equals reality minus expectations.
Yeah.
So if you really think about that, a lot of these people have all these expectations, back to the weight loss or whatever the journey might be, is like, you have these expectations that, I'm going to lose 10 kilos in a month and this and that. If you have these inflated expectations and those exceed your reality, you're not going to be happy.
Yep.
But if you do practice gratitude and mindfulness and all these things, and I really think in those countries, those people are grateful because they come from nothing.
Yeah.
So the fact that the sun's coming up and they got running water, like, that's sweet.
The dream.
Yeah. And they get to surf every day and eat fruit that they pick,
That does sound very nice.
Yeah, because I mean, if I had a dollar for every million or 100 millionaire that I sat down with, that's miserable. I'd be a richer man.
Fucking hell, I love it. What about so going back to the process, and what does your daily process look like now? Before we get back into your business journey,
sure.
What does that look like now?
So I mean, days depend. Sometimes I train in the morning or kind of late afternoon,
yep.
like
Cabana Boy says.
Cabana Boy says, yep. But more or less, I mean, in the morning we have the Man That Can journal.
Yep.
I work that process.
Yep.
So kind of cup of coffee, sit with that, maybe throw on a podcast,
yep.
kind of get the body loose, that type of thing. Depending on the day, typically business will get hopping pretty early.
Yep.
Particularly what's going on, if there's a deal in the mix or sometimes you deal with different time zones, stuff like that. So for the most part, kind of hit the phones, meet with my team and the executive team and all that stuff. So just kind of cover the bases. And then really it depends on what the world's throwing at me, typically dive into business. So I'm a big fan of sprint, walk, run. Sometimes you got to know when to walk, when to sprint and get after things. Right. Yep. So, but sometimes if things are a little cool, then just enjoy that, take that moment.
Yep.
And I'm kind of teaching some people around me on how to change gears and slow down.
Well, how have you become comfortable with that? Because let's talk finances, right? So a lot of people are stressed about money and most people are living week to week. A lot of people are also in a job that they don't enjoy because of the fact that they're living week to week and whatever it may be. and the stress is just abundantly high. If you look at a numbers perspective, right, the money that you're dealing with in regards to negotiation or, obviously as a publicly listed company is astronomical. How have you learnt to deal with the stress and the expectations of the responsibility that you have there?
Yeah, well, one thing I'll say is, if you owe someone $10, $1,000, $10 million, it's still a certain amount of stress.
Yes.
Because that problem is still there. If you don't have it, you don't have it.
Yep.
So that stress is still there. So you just kind of get calluses to the numbers. You've add a couple zeros. I mean, at the end of the day, the deal's the same.
Yep.
Maybe more lawyers and more documents involved.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, dealing with stress, I do feel for those entrepreneurs that are dealing with, $5,000 issues, just the same as we would with a $40 million issue.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you got to be rooted in your process, and you got to try and be as non-emotional as possible. If you stick to certain rules and principles, you'll probably be okay. Not all the time. Business isn't a science.
Yep.
Because people are involved. Right? That's the big one. But at the end of the day, if it's kind of like working out. If you're doing most things right, you will get results. Yep. And the same thing goes for finances. But what I see today, particularly with your average Joe, is everyone's living way outside their means. They're propelling debt. They're doing vacations they haven't earned. They haven't paid for them. They're wearing designer stuff. Like who gives a shit? Flexing on each other, and you'd have no money in your bank account. Like
yep.
Who cares? So I think what relieves that pressure. Like if you're working in a job that you don't like, well, get new skills or change careers, change jobs. I mean, it's an employee's market out there. And the entrepreneur market's massive. You can do Amazon drop. There's so much stuff.
So much, yeah.
And one thing I'd say, on that note is shoot to have multiple income streams. You don't want to have to be at that job. And,
Yep.
and what's funny, just like most things, when you have that leverage and you have that freedom, you're more sought after.
Yeah, exactly.
So, just focus on, living within your means, trying to accumulate some wealth. If you don't like a job, change it, because there's nothing worse than spending, 8, 10, 15 hours a day doing something you hate with people you don't want to be around.
Yep.
Remember I told you in the new year, my goal is to do cool shit with cool people.
Yep.
That's my mission statement.
That's one to get behind.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say take responsibility and learn the skills. There's so many people that sit in that woe is me sort of mindset. It's like, I don't have time to do that. I would never be able to understand that. And and people say it to me all the time, and I'm nowhere near, I guess, as successful. I'm successful in my own right around what I, value.
Yeah.
But compared to other people, not so much potentially financially or whatever, but people go, oh, it's all right for you because you can train whenever you want. It's like, well, I've built the life that I want to live. I'm not, I got out of building 10 years ago because I fucking hated it, and I knew that I wanted to have flexibility in my life. So I've had to learn a lot. I've had to have debt. I've had all of these setbacks and failure, but now it's paying off. It's like 8 years later. Yeah. And it's still got room to grow.
Yeah, like 4 a.m. no-shows. And,
dealing
with that, or high-maintenance clients and all that BS. Yeah, no, I mean, but that's the work you put in.
Yeah, and people don't want to do the work. And I think, even people listening to this, people are always looking for podcasts, shortcuts and tips. And it's like, at the end of the day, making money, creating freedom in your life, having a great relationship, having good health, there's a few fundamental principles that if you just implemented those fucking principles, you would achieve so much more success than constantly changing coaches or looking for the next quick fix.
Yeah.
Or going back to enjoying the journey and making it part of who you are, not just trying to go, I just want to get a six-pack for a minute.
Yeah.
I just want to earn $1,000 to pay for a holiday. It's like, how about you just build a life that you can afford $1,000?
It's built in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, like talking with the gym, I had a real aha moment. I've been fortunate to be around some pretty high-profile, successful people, and I was sitting on this guy's beautiful boat, and we're just hanging out, having a few drinks, and all he could talk about was the days when he was building. Here we are in the middle of the sea, it's beautiful, we're sitting back, champagne, and all he can talk about was when he was grinding, he couldn't make payroll that week, and he pulled off some ridiculous deal. That's all he wanted to talk about. And then I kind of thought to myself, I was like, I want to be this guy on the boat, and I want to have these things, but this guy's just, all he's thinking about is the journey that I'm on right now. He wishes he could come back and be in my shoes. So you got to really soak up the journey and put in the work. And to those that want to sit back and complain, well, if you're not applying towards massive change to mitigate those issues, then either do it or don't complain.
Yep.
That's as simple as that. Or accept your reality and lower your expectations, which I don't advise, but
yeah, but that's the truth, right? Like I love that. Accept reality and lower your expectations.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Hard to do. Like, it sucks to have to recognize that maybe you aren't good enough yet, but you can change that. But also the other thing to suck is to hear that quote, accept your reality.
Yeah.
Lower your expectations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not a fan
your
of
choice.
That. But if you hang out with us, you'll be better.
Yeah.
So going, where were we in the entrepreneurial journey we'd just done?
I was coming back to Canada.
Yeah.
So oil boom was on, like things were wild. There was hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in Alberta. Oil technologies were emerging, like you've heard of fracking and all that stuff. So there was just all this economic activity going on. I was, mid-20s and dove into a company that was on an aggressive mergers and acquisitions mission. So essentially they tied up 26 different companies in like 2 years. And I kind of got a front row seat to that. We took it public, and then in the end, we actually sold it to another NASDAQ, like Texas company. And I got front row seat to that. By the end of it, I was managing.
How did you get the front row? Just because of what you'd achieved prior, or was it network, or what? How did that pop up?
Yeah, so I was lucky, but I was willing to roll up my sleeves. So I was sitting in a boardroom down in Calgary, which is a city in Alberta. It's kind of the mecca of oil and gas for Canada. And we had this business division. It's called Fort McMurray. It's up north, and that's where all the work was going on. So by far, it was the largest business unit out of probably 50 plus locations across North America. And they said, we have a real problem up in Fort McMurray. Revenue's down, and all this stuff is going sideways. The managers, en masse, employees are quitting. It's just a gong show. So they said, who wants to take this on? And everyone kind of looks around the table, and no one was putting up their hand. And I was like, are these guys kidding me? Like, this is a massive opportunity. So I just put up my hand. I said, yeah, I'll go up there. Just fly me back and forth. I won't live up there. Fly me back and forth, and I'll build the team, and we'll do it. And I think in the end, we did like 65% of the company's revenue, North American revenue, 300, 400 employees rolling around. So it was a massive business division, and I was a big part of building that.
How important was like team building?
It was everything. It was everything. I mean, in an environment where you have rapid growth, your teammates, any environment, your teammates are key, but, we didn't have the luxury of recruiting, Ivy League graduates and top-notch people. I'm throwing in, people from spotty backgrounds into pretty big roles with multi-million-dollar budgets.
Opportunities.
Who's hungry? Who's hungry? Who wants to get after it, and who's going to be honest and work hard, and that's what we did. And it was kind of a crazy situation. Like, we all lived together, like all the employees, or at least the management team. No one was really from that area. It's a really northern, remote part of Canada. But we just all lived together. We ate together. We all had a common mission and goal. And I would put up these goals around the office, and everyone would have it, and kind of turned it into a bit of a mantra and all that stuff. And at the end of the day, it caught a lot of people's attention. We turned the numbers around incredibly, and that was kind of following this little template I always say is you got your people, you got your processes, and then you got your profits, and that's the order. So get the people in place, examine the processes that they're operating within, and then if you kind of take care of those two top line things, the profits will come, and then you can tweak things from there. Yep. So just kind of applied that, and we had tremendous success, and in the end, that was the main driver of pretty much the whole company, and that's what caught the attention. So I got to play a lead role in all the presentations, and that's how I kind of got the front row seat to that deal.
That's unreal. And then from that, where'd we go next? Because that's obviously a huge opportunity that you had. You ran with it, but you also put yourself in that position, right? Yeah.
So next, this was an interesting one, and it was pretty cutthroat on my behalf, but basically there was a couple companies that bid to buy that company at the time, and there was a front runner that pulled out last second, literally in the last hour. They just pulled out. It was a New York group called Warburg Pincus, this huge private equity group, and no real explanation. They just kind of pulled their bid and said, "Best of luck, too bad," and that was that. About a month later, they reached, and I met those guys. Spent probably a couple weeks with them all up between 6-month period, just kind of in and out and going to their offices and then coming to mine, asking questions, all that stuff. And they gave me a call, and they said, "Hey, listen, we pulled our bid because we think we can invest the money in that region better, and we want you and a few other guys to head it up." And they're like, "What do you think?" I was like, sounds like, if the numbers are right, let's do it. So yeah, they gave me a pretty big budget, and my brother was involved, and a few others.
Oh, really? So Alex was involved as well?
We probably took about 60% of the workforce.
Wow.
Yeah, and started a whole new business that did the exact same thing. We had no non-compete clauses. Like, it was completely above board. It was completely allowed to do it. And I didn't really feel much loyalty because all of my partners, they had all made their money. So everyone was kind of in and out.
Yeah. And were you owner of this company? Or
No. Warburg Pincus owned it. But we were heavily incentivized and had really aggressive growth targets, and, go buy companies and basically do it all over again. And I had the blueprint, knew the people, knew the contacts, knew the clients. Like, I don't want to say it was a challenge, but it wasn't much of a challenge.
Fuck.
So we ate their lunch.
Was that one of your favorite career successes so far? That one, or?
Yeah, that was really cool because it allowed me to travel. It was kind of cool to start with a blank canvas and do it the way you want to do it. Within reason. But there's that scene. You ever watch Entourage?
I loved Entourage.
Remember Ari Gold?
And
he buys the agency back and he comes in with the paintball gun. I kind of had that. I would play that scene every day. Yeah. And I was like, I'm doing that. And in the end, we did well. And I kind of got that up and running, saw that it was in a good place, and then decided to venture off and start my own thing.
Yep. And what was your own thing?
So we did this thing. It was called Connect Global Strategies, and it was kind of like a political advisory / sort of investment banking, financial advising business.
Yep.
I know it's a broad spectrum, but it was all kind of intertwined. Like, we had some correspondence with some high level people like the White House and the Middle East, and business and politics are heavily intertwined. So it was kind of like to understand, the oil landscape, you got to understand the policies, and you understand who's in place and who's lobbying who. And, there's a lot. It's just a chess game. It's not checkers, right? So, So did a lot of work out of the Middle East, and, at the time oil had a bit of a downturn. So there was a ton of Canadian companies and American companies that needed capital, and the banks were overexposed, and they weren't lending money, and, these companies needed money to stay afloat. And the Middle East kind of provided that gap. So we were kind of the conduit into North America for those funds.
Yeah, right.
So we just did a series of deals over sort of 3-4 years, and it was a great journey. Had some challenging deals, but in the end, I think it was a success, and I ended up taking some time off after in my mini retirement.
Mini retirement.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, at the time, my wife, she was an equestrian, so she would compete, all over North America in equestrian events. So it was interesting because I was around some pretty interesting people. Met Bill Gates.
What's he like?
Honestly, I didn't. Not enough of a sample size. But from what I think, he's kind of a creep. But
Bill, if you're listening to this,
deplatform us, see what happens. But yeah, no. I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't. It was cool. It was a cool experience, but it wasn't for me. Like, a lot of those people just are really out of touch with reality.
Yep.
And it was cool though, because it led me to meeting this guy named Jesse, who's a phenomenal entrepreneur. Actually, a lot like Dan in a lot of ways.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it was just like a mini DJ. Same business, machinery, like mining machinery and heavy equipment. And he had founded an incredible business that was just thriving. And he's like, "Look, you can't be retired, man." Like, I was like, "No, man, I'm on."
How old were you at this age?
I was like 32.
32 retiring.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was half serious. I just was super burnt out and had gone really hard. I went really hard throughout my 20s for the most part. But yeah, basically he just was like, "We'll create a role for you, man. Like, you got to get on board. We have some stuff that kind of aligns with what you do." And so we did that, and then that ultimately led. We did a large equipment deal with a company called Emeco, which is an Australian company. And Dan had sold his company to Emeco.
Oh, so that's where Matilda went to as well.
Yeah, so Matilda got sold to Emeco. Dan had sort of like a 12-month non-compete. Yep. And he had to be on the executive team. I don't know what his title was, but basically Dan and I got put into a deal where we were supposed to not like each other. And,
really?
And plot twist, we did. So yeah, basically we did that deal.
How wild is that?
Yeah. So all of 2018, like, I pretty much came back and forth to Brisbane, and Dan and I were working.
Yep.
And then he came along and was like, "Hey man, I think I'm going to buy a copper mine." And I'm like, okay, like what, he's like, do you mind taking a look at the deal kind of thing? So, that was kind of how that started. So here we are.
Was that where you wanted to get into next?
Copper?
Yeah.
No, I never even thought about it. Like I was in, kind of mining, but mainly equipment. Like I never really cared as long as it's digging stuff up. I don't care what you're digging.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically, I kind of had a broad strokes on the electric vehicle revolution and green energy and all that stuff, but I wasn't really following it. I was, traditional oil and gas guy, so I was pretty dialed in that world. But at the end of the day, I kind of did some due diligence and looked at it, and sometimes you got to go by some gut too. And I knew DJ was a hell of a businessman, and
he is a savage. Eh?
Oh yeah, no, he's probably the best deals guy I ever met. So
how awesome! So just
no, it's all right.
Another segue, like negotiation and putting together big deals. Like, how important do you believe that is a skill set to getting what you want, and what's that been like for you? Like, what have been your best teachers and experiences to date?
It's critical.
Yeah.
I mean, because then that dials back to another trait, which is good communication. Right, good communication, your employees are going to be stronger, your customers are going to be stronger, and then if you are negotiating, those negotiations will be stronger. Yeah. So I think clear communication and effective communication is paramount. Mm-hmm. But negotiations, I mean, everyone has their style, and it's, don't try to be someone you're not. But what I've seen, and this is going to sound kind of weird, but what I've seen from the best is their ability to be unreasonable near the end.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so basically, when that deal is pretty much landed on, it's like that extra bit of being unreasonable and pushing the dial. And again, at the end of the day, you want it to be mutual. You want both sides to win, and you want both sides to walk away feeling good. But from the best I've seen is like I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, good, we'll cut it, and they're like, no. Like,
and so when you say when you define the best, you mean making the most.
Just the best return, yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, it depends on your leverage point, and so many elements that go into it. But at the end of the day, that little extra bit of just getting something else, and I've seen that from a lot of great entrepreneurs and great negotiators, and I don't feel comfortable doing it. Like I'm too nice, I think.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's taught me to just kind of push that little extra bit. Don't rock the boat. Don't upset people, but. If you think there's a little bit left on the table, there probably is, and you should take it.
Do you think that can be taught, negotiation and deal
yeah, I mean, I think it starts at a young age. Look at toddlers, right? And they're like, I'll throw a hissy fit. You give me that Tim Tam.
yeah, true. Right? I do that now.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, at the end of the day, it's part of everyone's life.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like anything. It's a muscle. You got to train it. And what helps me is I read, like, I'm kind of a nerd. I read like historic deals and what was going on.
Do you really?
Yeah.
So where would you find, because I'm always curious as to where people get, like Joe Rogan, for example, what is he reading to know what he knows? Or what do you read, or where do you get your information from?
Yeah, so I mean, books, audio, like I actually listen to probably 80% of my content.
Yep.
Whether it be audiobook, podcasts, but I do read quite a bit as well. But I think it's having an open mind, like listening to your favorite podcast, or listen to the sources they, like I know Joe Rogan gets a lot of stuff from Radiolab, like it's just wild scientific.
Really? I've never even, dude.
Yeah. So like if you want to go down some rabbit holes, listen to Radiolab.
Yep.
But I mean, at the end of the day, there's great movies even, that's a good influence. I mean, nowadays they're doing biopics like every month on different historic characters, and then just dialing in deeper, right? Like if you hear someone like Jordan Peterson be like, oh, I learned this from this book, well, look it up and dive into it, make your own thoughts on it. I think it's important to do self-development all the time.
How much time do you spend thinking and actually forming your own opinions?
Quite a bit. Like, and that's the thing. I'm fortunate now, a lot of my job is to think. So, like doing those 30 emails is probably way less effective than thinking about one problem for a long time and all the angles that could play out.
Yep.
So like, if you can get out of the noise, then have time to think. But, sometimes I have trusted sources. Like there's certain people I'll hear and basically it's spot on. I'm like, maybe it's propaganda. I don't know. But I'm just like, yep, that's my take too.
Yep.
But I think it's important not just to regurgitate, everything all the time. And again, with your friends, like how much do we talk about wild stuff that's wide ranging, from AI to strength and conditioning, methodologies.
To a heap of stuff.
Yeah. So I think it's important to just have your environment all around you, whether, mental diet.
I like it. Mental diet.
Yeah.
Sick one.
Yeah.
And then, so into the copper mine, what made you get into the deal? What made you take that up?
Well, mainly, I mean, DJ,
Yeah.
right? Like him presenting the opportunity and saying, come on board and let's do this thing. And it was pretty cool. I mean, at the end of the day, there was sort of 4 of us in the beginning. And, today between contractors and employees, I think there's like probably 250, 300 people that are on our work sites. So to see that process and see this from front to back, it was kind of unlike anything else I'd ever done.
Is this the biggest thing that you've been a part of?
It depends what metric of big. I mean, taking a company public.
Yep.
Yeah. That was something new for me. I did that once before with that other business I was talking about earlier, but I didn't play a front row seat to the public side.
Yep.
Like that was the executive team, and I was more on the ground managing the business unit. But yeah, I think, in a lot of ways, deal sizes and stuff, it's about congruent with the stuff I've done in the past. But I mean, sometimes $1 billion deal can be really boring, and $5 million deal is a lot more fun, right? So like it numbers don't really factor into that. But really, again, it was do cool shit with cool people.
Yep.
And also the opportunity, like my life was going through a transition. I did get divorced. The only reason I was living in that city was because my wife was from there, and I desperately wanted to leave all along, but she wasn't willing to. So, the fact that I broke free of that, I did have friends and some family around, but I've always been one to hop on a plane and shake it up. I literally took 2 suitcases, left multiple houses behind, multiple cars, dogs, horses, wife, the whole deal.
Yeah. See ya.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to shake it up, as we spoke about earlier.
Yeah.
And I think for some people, they're like, this guy's crazy. But it's like, that's the stuff you need to do if you want to rebuild who you are.
Totally.
To a degree. Some people, everyone's situation's different, but think about the way you can shake your life up.
Yeah.
You didn't have any kids as well, so
yeah,
we'll put that in the mix because there'll be some
asterisk.
Yeah.
No kids
that you're aware of now.
Yeah.
I was going to ask another question. So, the success that you've had career-wise, most people in your position, when they look at coaching, I'm tying this into the academy, want to work one-on-one with people.
Mm-hmm.
Like they wouldn't necessarily see value in a program that costs $200 a month or whatever. It's chump change, like in comparison for a lot of people in CFO or CEO work with executive coaches,
mm-hmm.
right? Which generally costs you 30 plus grand a year.
Yep.
Why did you opt for like a group coaching program over one-on-one?
Yeah, good question. So one thing I was missing for a long time was, I grew up in a dressing room.
Yep.
Around a bunch of dudes and having fun, and that was more of the reason I showed up.
Yep.
I love the physical side and I loved competing, but it was mainly just the mateship and being there with those guys and going to hell with them all the time, going to war. So, the thought I had was immerse myself with the group.
Yep.
And I think I told you that in the early going. I was like, I'm going to start with the group because I want to meet these people and I want to have a diverse group of friends and I want to be in the trenches with all these guys. And I think the one-on-one provides a great opportunity and certainly something that is right for a lot of people.
Yep.
But for me, I wanted that bond mainly, and that's exactly what I got,
Yeah, I was curious to hear that because, I ask a lot of people, especially those I work with one-on-one as well. And for me, I'm still of the belief that I personally get more out of a group environment as well because you can get multiple perspectives on one challenge, but it's also like you may see, if I'm working with a coach one-on-one, they're not talking to me about what they're doing in their business necessarily, but in a group environment, you're hearing so much stuff that's happening that's either making you question things you're doing in your life or it inspires you or motivates you to work harder. And for me, I'm like, that's just where I need to be from a perspective. So yeah, for some people I even work with one-on-one, I'm like, I don't want to work one-on-one. How about you jump in the group? And they're like, no, they don't see it as valuable.
Yeah.
And I've been, fair enough, each to their own. That's completely fine. But I was just curious as to why you went for that sort of option.
Yeah, no, that was kind of my decision criteria.
The locker room. We should call it the locker room, not the academy.
Yeah, or change circle to the locker room.
Yeah, I like that. Strong men of value locker room.
Yeah.
Get sweaty and stinky. That's weird, isn't it?
It's a niche market.
Yeah. Just be me, you, and Liam.
Yeah.
which would be perfect. What's so obviously you got your mantra now, do cool shit with cool people,
Yep.
or good shit with good people. What's that look like for you in 2023?
Well, I mean, Austral's
Yep.
a big focus. We have gotten off to a busy start, so things are underway, and we got some pretty big plans.
Yes.
So that's going to take a lot of time and energy, and I'm taking on some new sort of roles and responsibilities as well. So I'm really excited about that. It's more in line with my core competencies. So that will be the focus. But obviously promoting and being involved with the academy, that's a big focus of mine.
Man, you actually, that's what I was going to show you before. I'm going to bring it up because it's all time and I know you're going to love it, and you're going to love the photo that we've gotten here. If I can bring it up. Where's Leica? So our VA, Leica, she does an incredible job. I was like, we want to start recognizing top referrer of the month. Yeah. So congratulations, happened in live action. And I was like, could you? This is the photo I chose because I think it just is.
Oh boy!
For those on watching on YouTube, you can see Luke riding a horse.
It's Alberta Luke right there.
Yeah, mate, you just reminded me. I just wanted to play Morgan Wallen or Combsy and look at that, but we've made up a tile which I can't find. Anyway, it's going to be going live today, which will be awesome because you'll. Here we go. Here we go. Here's a big man. So, yeah, we want to recognize, because obviously a big part of our business as well as word of mouth, and a lot of people, we've just started realizing because we've been doing surveys and stuff, and I don't talk a lot about my business on the podcast, which I want to start doing because I think a lot of people are starting businesses and I can learn from others, etc. But word of mouth is a big thing, and you've just been referring like a crazy mofo, and I started wondering to myself, so many people are getting results, why don't they do it? And some of the main feedback we got back from members was they didn't know how to approach it with people. So, can you give us a masterclass? No. You're like, oh man, I can do it. But yeah, I guess one thing we will be doing for our members and just for people in general is share. I've always been worried about trying to be pushy.
Yeah.
But I also understand there are people who want to get their mates involved because of the results that they've got or how it's improved relationships or career or life in general.
Yeah.
So to teach them the skill set to actually invite them to check it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, firstly, you guys offer a great experience, a great product, great service, right? So it's helping people. And for me, it's an easy conversation because a lot of folks will say, wow, Luke, in the last 6 months, we've seen quite a transformation. Those that knew me maybe only for the last 3-4 years, they knew me as kind of one guy.
Yep.
And the thing that's funny is I was actually kind of always this guy, and I went to that guy.
Yes.
So, they knew me as this, beer drinking wild dude, right? So so now they see, I'm pretty dialed in the gym, getting focused, really getting a lot of benefits sort of throughout my life. And they're like, well, what are you doing? And then it's just a perfect segue into the academy. And then I talk about all the tools and the methodology and what we preach. And at the end of the day, it's a pretty simple conversation to have, and they see the results firsthand. So like what's interesting, I think I told you this, is I've had so many wives approach me for their husbands, and they're just like, do you think you could talk to the people? I'm like, yeah, don't worry, just get them in touch with me. And it's about them making that decision to make that leap.
Yep.
But as soon as they chat with me, it's just like, get signed up, start running the stairs with the group on Saturday, just get dialed in, and do the program.
And that's the other thing, I guess, as well. While we're, I live in Brisbane, you live in Brisbane, we've got an awesome turnout in Brisbane where we're working on really growing that, and where it then goes out to our members is, wherever you live, you can start creating a group for yourself. It's like invite your mates to go for a run with you or go for a walk or do whatever and create that catch-up space.
Yeah.
We don't talk about, we just talk shit and run stairs and then have a coffee and a croissant. It's amazing. Well, but it brings everyone, it brings everyone together. And you can talk about things that maybe you're working on, or you just have a catch-up, because for me, it's, you guys are all my mates. Like, I'm very grateful that literally the people that join our academy become some of my closest mates.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's my life is insane. And that's how I want it to be for everyone. If they go, I can learn tools and strategies and all of those things to better improve who I am, but I also am being, put in touch with some incredible people that have you have the opportunity to become really close with, which is what most people need.
Yeah.
They don't feel valued. They don't feel heard. So you leverage it.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'd say to those guys that are in remote places around the world, because now it's fully global.
Oh yeah.
But get 4 or 5 of your mates and build that network, and then they get 4 or 5. Next thing you get 20 people.
And then you're doing, like, if you're in the bush, you'd be dragging tractor tires, not stair runs.
Yeah.
I mean, like, get amongst that.
It's hardcore. Yeah,
that's actually cool. I would love to see that.
Yeah, we get the Russian Dagestani crew fighting bears.
Yeah, imagine that. You guys think you're strong carrying your
don't mess
tractor
around.
tires, so I'm wrestling bears. All right, you wrestle your bear. We'll do a workshop over in Russia.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Which would be epic. What would be one piece of advice, and a final question, that you would have given to your, and this will be interesting because of, you said you grew up in a bubble where it was very different, that you would give to your 18-year-old self?
Pick your partner wisely.
Life partner?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. We've never had anyone give advice around a relationship.
Biggest business deal you ever make.
Elaborate.
Well, if it goes south, you lose half.
Yes.
But and I don't want to focus on the negative side. And I'm not saying that out of spite either. I truly believe it. If you have a supportive partner, that's going to flow through everything. Actually, Harvard did a 75-year longitudinal study, and the number one indicator of happiness was, not physical health, not your career, not wealth. It was
your life partner.
Strength of relationships, and predominantly your spouse.
Wow.
So, if you're going to be more than likely to build a life together, and 75% of people with happy relationships earn more than the average person. So, it's just for your overall well-being, wouldn't it be nice? I mean, you and Amy have created that, and you put the effort in to have that relationship, but a lot of people don't have that, and that takes them down a notch, and then that flows through negatively throughout every aspect of their life. So kind of pendulum that swings both ways. But it's interesting because a lot of people meet a partner at one stage of their life, maybe in their early 20s, mid 20s, whatever, but you're a completely different person at 25 to 35 or 45. So it's really important you just take your time and pick the right partner.
Yeah, you heard it here first. We might start the Man That Can relationships.
Oh, geez.
When are we doing the next Cabana Boys? When are we getting that one?
Hey, man, let's do it. Let's lock it in.
That was the biggest, almost listened to episode in January. So we need to bang one out.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm game.
Mate, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a pleasure, and I reckon we're going to get you on in another couple of months to check in. But, appreciate your friendship, appreciate all that I've learned from you, and it's also been great to watch your transformation, 18 kilos down or whatever, but it's been epic.
No, thanks, Lockie. It's a privilege to be here, and it's just kind of surreal for me because I started out kind of a loser in a basement listening to these podcasts. Here I am. So
that's aspirations, guys. If you're listening to this podcast and you want to be on it, it's possible. Anything's possible. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.